Here.
Trustee Walt Lashevsky.
Here.
Trustee Neil Gaynor.
Here.
Trustee Brad Hauk.
Here.
Trustee Kent Maggard.
Here.
Trustee Keith Lincoln.
Here.
Trustee David Smith.
Here.
Trustee Hugh Connett.
Here.
Trustee Bob Lux is here. Trustee Paul Martin.
Here.
Good, we have a quorum. We will begin with our opening invocations and pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, and our nation. Help us to work diligently, always for the common good and in the best interest of those who we have been elected to represent. Guide us to be insightful and prudent in our intentions, visions, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance and to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue and discussion with understanding, wisdom, and humility. Amen.
Amen.
If you wish, prior to reciting the pledges of allegiance, please take an additional moment of silent prayer or reflection in the manner of your preference. Thank you. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public, Shelley? No. There's no report from Arthur Bredehoff. There was no meeting and he is also out of town. So that moves to agenda item number 5. Is Imelda
I
here
just
this
got a
evening?
text
Okay.
from Ms. Diaz. She is stuck in traffic on 545.
Okay.
So I think Keith can talk about that.
I'm not a pastor.
Well, she should be here hopefully soon.
Very good. We can come back to that. Next are agenda items 6 and 7, pages 1 through 13 in our meeting packets.
Move to accept.
We have
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second to accept as submitted. Further discussion on this matter? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
We have one abstention. Trustee
I was not in
Connett,
attendance.
and the motion passes. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 8, Mr. Meeks, the regular SJRA monthly report. Mr.
Good
Schaff.
evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Report begins on page 14. We saw you had a light agenda, so we gave you a lot more papers this month just to make up for it. But do want to draw your attention to page 15. As you probably see on the cover page as well as on page 15, there are some spikes in the water loss. This month is 15%. Right now, we are working with Woodlands Water to identify what the actual spike is from. And so more to come as soon as we figure out what that is. If we figure out by the muds, by the time we submit this for the mud packets, we'll update it in the mud packets. If not, we'll just verbally tell you whatever it is. But it is an anomaly, we believe, at this point in time, because there's been no major fires, no major water leaks. That's, by the way, that 15% loss is roughly 100 million gallons. Production was roughly, I think, 600 million. So that is something that we would actually notice. So just
The water is metered as it leaves the water plants.
It's metered as it goes into the water plants.
Into the water.
Right. And then if we flush any, we meter that as it comes out, or we estimate that. And so we use that as accounted for. And the next time it's metered is when it goes to the residential commercial items.
So do you have this data estimated on a daily basis?
Not on a daily basis. So we have our data, the production data we get daily, the sales data, I guess y'all do potentially with the AMR, AMI. Potentially we could, yeah.
You could identify it to a particular day or number of days.
Right. That would take a little bit of coordination and working together on numbers and stuff when they're from the system, but in theory, I'd say, yeah, we could.
What's the normal approach to investigate this?
Essentially, we look at production, verify all the production numbers. If all the production numbers are good and verifiable, then we go to Woodlands Water and work with them to see if there's any major line breaks. February, when you guys do the meter flush or the fire hydrant flushing, that peaks up, and then we work with them on the billing data.
How many gallons did you say this was?
About 100 million gallons.
More. Two. Or so. That's a big number. Approximate.
Around 100. That's a big number. You definitely see it. So we're looking into that.
There's no other meters, like there's no check meter coming into one of them, sure. Yeah.
There's the surface water is metered as it comes in. Each of the wells are metered as they go into the VSTs. And then it's just the end meters after that. There's no other cross connections. We used to have connections with Conroe. We cut that off years ago, like maybe a decade ago. We do have one interconnect with the city of Shenandoah, but that's locked on both sides until they call and we call at the same time.
Well, that's the next meeting. Explanation.
Yeah, if we can, by the mud time, we'll have it. If not, we'll go from there. And if it does end up being an anomaly that we cannot answer at this point in time, then when we do our budget and estimated water loss for FY27, we're going to exclude those 2 months. Just because there's no way it could have actually been done. So it's an anomaly, pull it out for budgeting purposes.
Is this for 2 months or 1 month?
That is for September.
Yeah, it's just 1 month.
Just one.
But Jim was big too.
June was big as well. That's the other anomaly that we first saw it and still working to see what that is. We did get some rough data for October. October's back down to 3%. And so you can see in June, it went up to almost 12%, then went down to about 1%. September spikes up to about 15%, then October drops to 3%. So
Yeah, there has been some increase in breaks, but they weren't large water loss breaks. We got on them pretty quick, isolated the system, fixed them.
Yeah.
Nothing that would create that amount of water.
But couldn't it be somewhere in the 20 miles between the plant and us, and there's all kinds of other places for the water to go in there?
So that's a good point. So the GRP, if they have water loss before it hits the water plant, that's not included on this. This is strictly from the River Authority water plants here in the Woodlands and the end meter.
Right in the wood.
Yeah, everything on like 2978 Fitz Creek and everything else, that's all included on GRP's water loss.
We are looking at our reporting too. We're looking at our numbers on our end too, out of our system too. So we're thinking there may be potentially something there that might have caused this. So
Did we do an investigation on the June data?
we'll be doing both those months, yes. It's a combination. Yeah.
Well, that's.
Next item I want to talk about begins on page 42 in your packet. Oh,
You jumped all the way over all the projects. Can we ask questions on project? On page 19. So you had the kickoff meeting with the town center water line replacement. Any findings, surprises, observations, confirmation of plan?
nothing really at this point in time. There is one item that we will talk with the trustees and the MUDs about in the future. That is basically keep it high level. It's how you, so right now you have the AC pipe, asbestos cement pipe, right? There's very, very little regulation on what you do to dispose of, but it is a hazardous material. So it's either leave it in place. If you pipe burst it, then there's potential liability in the future, or you can do this process called a slurification, where you actually grind up the pipe, put into a slurry, then dispose of it like in a landfill or something else like that. So we're evaluating that to see if that's something to basically reduce future liability. That's one thing we did talk about. That's going to be one of the first things they look at and brought back to y'all.
Okay. You know, companies that do that.
There are. better for the environment, may cost, slightly more, better for the environment, the people, future people digging in the area and everything else.
And then on page 22, any preliminary or in progress updates on the disinfection by products? And we still on schedule for March, or I saw on the big package, it showed April. Showed a delay in that completion. So are we're talking March or April?
Should be, actually, I'm not gonna say I know which one. Do you know off the top of your head, disinfection?
My guess is probably the April date.
And we tried to coordinate those two back and forth, but I can find that out and we'll adjust it.
But any,
Nothing at this point. We haven't had a
Nothing yet.
progress meeting. Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions before I put forward? Beginning on page 42, some of y'all have seen these in the past. Those that haven't, these are, you're gonna have 4 graphs here. So twice a year, we conduct aquifer level readings. And so you'll have one that says the first 2 are gonna be for the Evangeline aquifer, 1990 to current. The second one for the Evangeline, that's on page 44, is gonna be from 2010 to current. Basically, we show you, a long history, and then we're showing you a little snapshot so you can see some of the trends a little bit better. After that, you have the same information for the Jasper. So we can go into a lot of detail and what about and how about and everything else with these. The one thing I generally look at is if you go and you look at the graph that is on page, for example, 44, snapshot of 2010 to current, right around that 2015 mark, 2016 is when surface water came in. So prior to 2015, you see you got the sawtooth pattern, very erratic, and it's dropping down quite a bit. After that point, you see where it kind of stabilizes a little bit, right? And what you're seeing in the last few years is you do have some stability, but you're still seeing it drop down. And so when you go look at the Jasper, you're going to see the exact same thing. So even though the Woodlands has taken 50% surface water and have for the last 2-3 years easy, your aquifers are still dropping because they're not confined to the Woodlands, right? They're everywhere. So when we look at this data, we look at the Evangeline wells, for example, those wells go down to somewhere between, let's say, 600 and 800 foot, depending on the well. And so that's the bottom of the aquifer. You can't drill them any deeper than that. So when those wells hit, basically, if it's 800-foot well, if it's about probably 750 foot drop, we have to cap the well because you don't have enough submergence on the pump to actually pull water. So what we're looking for with the Evangeline wells is at what point are these wells going to get so low in the aquifer that we're going to have to actually cap those wells? Okay. We did a study in 2022, assuming and saying, okay, if it drops at this rate, using history and everything else, when would the wells actually have to be capped? The Evangeline wells overall had roughly 15 years to go from 2022 before they would need to be capped. There's projections and estimates and everything. It's not a hard, fast number every year. We pull this, we say, okay, where are we sitting? And so far it's still trending with the 15 years before all the Evangelines are going to need to be capped. 1 or 2 can be lowered, but nothing major. You're going to spend $100,000 plus to get an extra 50 foot. May be worth it, may not, just depends how fast the aquifer's dropping.
And what percentage of our wells are between 2 aquifers?
Roughly 50%.
50/50.
Roughly, it's, I think we actually have more Evangeline than we do Jasper. It's like 17 to 19 or something like that. But
And Mud 80, is it 89 and 90 who are coming into the GRP?
Mhm.
In relation to what we're taking, what are they going to be taking in terms of surface water? Is it the same, half, a third?
theirs is kind of confusing. I only said that because, so there's 3 muds they're buying. They're 88, 89 and Scud. Yeah, Spring Creek. I want to say they're taking roughly about 30% their initial phase because they requested up to 500,000 gallons and they're taking just over 1 million. But they do want to go higher than that. They do want to go at some point up to possibly 1 million.
Their pipe is big enough to support water.
Our pipe is, they have not, their pipe is still under design and analysis to determine how big it needs to be. We were talking about that this morning, actually.
But they'll make it big enough with future expansion.
That's what we're talking about right now. Making sure that it's big enough that if you want to serve not only Mud 89, but the other, let's say 8 to 10 entities in the area, that we can also use the surface water to go over there as well. Because most of those entities have one, sometimes three wells. And so, for what you're feeling, if you lose all your Evangeline, you can still get the water, demand done because you have the Jasper aquifers plus the surface water. But you lose a lot of your redundancy. The reason the Woodland's been good over time and never had to really worry about water is you've had the redundancy. So how all this plays into everything is you can look at the current project plan and you'll see where it says we're going to look at capping. I think it's wells 1 and 5. Used to be 1, 2, and 5, 1, 2, 3, something like that. So we're going to look to cap these older wells in the upcoming 10-year project plans, and then you're going to see another project for a new water well. Because what we're looking to do is some of these older wells, as they start getting dry, start looking to cap those and replace like 2 or 3 wells with one bigger Jasper well. So your overall production capability stays the same, your number of assets reduce, although the cost of the capital goes up. Good information. We generally will be presenting this time every year. And
Okay, what do you attribute this sawtooth pattern in Jasper from what? You said you measure twice a year.
correct.
Why is it high, low, high, low?
So we measure seasonally. The first time is in February, the second time is in September. So seasonal fluctuations on the well. So if you go back to like 2023 with a drought, in 2022, which was a smaller drought, that's where you'll see some of those bigger drops. Like on page 46, right towards the end of it, 2023 down, you'll see the bigger drop because that was taken in October, right after all the production in the summertime.
How do you physically measure them?
We got airlines and what else is the other thing we use, Jason?
E-line, tape, sonar.
I talked to the USGS several years ago. And apparently they don't have access to this data. Because they said they have to scratch and claw to go out and physically do it themselves. Do you coordinate, do they ever come out and measure your wells?
Not our wells, but they have their wells next to it and we go with them because they're on our site. So
No, that's what I meant, but if they want to measure one of your, do they actually come out and measure your wells?
not our wells, but so on our water plants, we'll have USGS wells that have never had a pump in it. And they come measure those. So if they ever want our data, just have them call us. We'll be glad to.
No, I'm just, so they actually have a well that's pressure observation well that's drilled through the Jasper and the Evangeline.
Yep.
That they measure.
They do.
Have you ever checked them to see?
I've never touched their stuff. They don't touch.
No, I'm
mine.
just talking about.
But USGS did just do a full update on the entire region and presented that data a couple months ago.
No, I was just curious about how their measurements compare with yours.
We used to get their data. I haven't seen it. Jason, have you seen it lately? That's a good point. We haven't seen their data in quite a while.
Big package that they presented to a number of entities in the last 90 days or so.
They were at the park.
Yep, that was one of them. They presented at Lone Star as well.
Yeah.
I was at that one.
Interesting.
What surprised me was they both groups, Lone Star and Park, had the same head scratching moments as they describe what's going on. You can see the data interpretation issues they both have.
Interpretation issues, yes.
How long are your wells shut in before you measure?
For the pumping,
No, I'm talking about,
for the static,
these are supposed to be static measurements. How
24
long?
hours.
24 hours?
Sometimes a little bit longer, rule of thumb.
You ever measure them when you're down? In other words, when you pull one.
Yeah.
And check whether it's been down for 2 weeks, whether how it matches up with 24 hours.
We've done that occasionally. That's why 24 hours makes the most sense, just because it's static. But the other thing we do is if it's off a well rehab and it hasn't been ran for like 6 months, we'll pull that data as well. Just because some of those wells have been down for a year and it's like, okay, what's happened in a year? Well, we haven't pulled it. Let's get that data.
No, it's really good data. Because that tells you what the true aquifer pressure is. It's not.
Yeah.
24.
Yeah, it hasn't been touched in 6 months versus 24 hours. So
Did want to just point out in your packet, because we were working with SGA and Esther did a good job of putting together this update for page 24, 21. But we just talked about putting together more information. I know Dan's been working on it quite a bit, at least once, maybe twice a year. These projects are not unfamiliar to you, but I wanted to kind of go into more detail. And so didn't intend to go through all of them, but wanted to provide you with these one pagers so you could have a little bit more information about a lot of these projects which are in the 10-year plan.
Yeah, kind of speak on it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so no, that was a good transition. You know, this was really a request, you know, coming from Eric and Woodlands Water, but ultimately from feedback from a number of the MUD directors to, you know, we're looking at twice a year to provide a more comprehensive update on projects that are ongoing or completed. It really is kind of a supplement to information you have in the 10-year project plan, information you're getting in your monthly operating report. But it's also an opportunity to celebrate kind of the wins and completion of project and bringing those back to you to say, hey, we have actually completed this, rather than just falling off your monthly operating report some random month. But it's also, you know, there's projects that have issues and delays. So we want to be transparent about that. So you will see in here some boxes highlighted in red regarding schedule delays or other concerns. But really looking for any feedback. You know, this is the first one we've done of this kind. It's been a number of years since we've gone to this kind of level of detail too. So we are looking for feedback and something to improve on, something to learn from. I did want to highlight at least one or two project examples just to show you what information is in here. Like I said, Derek said, I'm not going through every project. So depending on what you have, if you have the standalone handout or if you're looking from your MUD packet, one that I want to just kind of speak from, if you're working from the MUD packet itself, it would be on page 28. If you're working from the standalone report, it would be on page 5. So out of all the projects highlighted in here, this is water well numbers 22, 26, 33, rehabilitation and abandonment of water well 2. This is the only one that is officially completed. So this is an example of where we would be highlighting, you know, the overall scope of the project, you know, why we're doing it, the benefits to the system, the benefits to the community, but also noting in this case, you know, we came in under budget. So we want to highlight that as a win and showing where we came in under budget. But each project is a similar template where you're going to see the engineer, contractor schedule, the project milestones, budget, financial information. The financial information in here, the invoice to date should match the monthly operating report for up through October 31st. One other project, just as an example to highlight for you, is on page 8. And the standalone project or would be on page 31 in your packet. So this is a project we've been working on since September of 23. Water plant numbers 1, 2, and 3 doing replacement generators or adding generators to those for backup power. You know, there was a time where we had to go through the engineering, but then also it took about a year to even get those generators ordered, procured, and now we're currently in construction. So one thing I want to point out here is you see the red box for behind schedule. Well, why are we behind schedule? So that's briefly provided to you in the status. But we ran into some issues that stemmed actually from errors and omissions on our engineer with kind of not doing their due diligence in coordinating with Entergy, which is our supplier at the facility, to where their design did not meet Entergy's standards for where we have power coming in to the meter, to the disconnect, and requirements associated with that. So that has furthermore delayed the project. There is cost impacts to that we're working through a change order right now with the contractor. You know, ultimately it's something we would pursue, essentially get refunded for the errors and omissions too. So there's a lot of coordination going on that. You know, we're doing that currently, but just wanted to give you an example that not every project goes as planned. And then project milestones, you'll see on an ongoing project where we have projected completion dates, really giving you an idea of when those milestones would be coming up. So I'll pause there. I'm happy to answer any questions, specific projects that you see. These will be in your MUD packets. Like I said, you know, we'd like your input on how can we improve this as the information.
Actually, you just one into one of the, okay,
What's the difference?
yes.
There should not be any,
Oh, okay.
just paid numbers. Go ahead, Paul.
On, back to your page 28, where you're talking about that water well two abandonment.
Yep.
What's the formal procedure for doing that and who do you have to, you need approval to get that processed or what's the process?
For like essentially completing the project.
You want to abandon a well, what do you have to do? What does TCEQ have to tell you have to do?
Sure. So I believe all the water well stuff, Chris, we're coordinating with TCQ on those too, especially the abandonment and.
Yeah, the Railroad Commission did Lone Star.
One unique thing on the water wells, the rehabilitations, we're actually got in-house staff that's able to design those. So like under the engineer, you'll see SGRA. The reason we got Interra involved is due to the methane producing well and number two there, that we wanted to make sure we had a professional on board to understand the measures that had to be taken to properly plug that well.
What are those measures? I'm trying to understand the process.
I do not know.
Can SJRA make the determination on their own that this well needs to be abandoned? Or do you need approval for that?
The main thing that you're going through is the engineer. So we determined we want to cap this well, whether it's producing, it's not, whatever, it doesn't matter. If TCQ doesn't care, Railroad Commission doesn't care.
Right.
We say it needs to be capped, basically, plugged, whatever you want to call it. The engineer will have to design the actual plug and the cap, submitted to TCQ, get their approval, Railroad Commission approval as well in some cases. And then they say, okay, you can plug it, get the contractor, then they put the cement plug in there, make sure it's hydrostatically tested to whatever it needs to go to, pressure related, seal it off entirely per the design of the engineer, then submit all that in writing back to Railroad Commission and TCQ, and in this case, Lone Star as well, then they consider it plugged.
And then is there a process to come back and physically review that condition? Like every 5 years, every 10 years?
There's nothing formal. The TCQ doesn't say you have to do it. Now we do it occasionally just to go back and see, you know, is this still deteriorating? Water well 4 that we capped probably 15 years ago, we checked that 5 years ago just to see, because they're covered up with dirt. So, right, you bury it and cover it up. So we just check to see, is there any depressions? Do you have any leaking in? Do you have any anything that needs to be sealed in any case? Because at some point you do imagine that it is going to kind of break loose a little bit.
Just thinking from a liability standpoint, I mean, as long as all that's being recorded and verified and checked off, I think that helps protect us, protects you and therefore us.
Water in the aquifer too, right? You don't want any contamination, so.
Right.
There's a state database that shows every well that's ever drilled in Texas and the status of it.
Right.
I forget who maintains it, but you go online and type in, you can.
There's one, just because we looked it up, we have a old gas well at wastewater plant 1 that's not in there. And we're trying to cap it and we can't cap it because nobody knows who put it there or why it's there.
Usually the Railroad Commission has some data sets on that. You can pull up the map and data.
I haven't been in that business. Generally what you do when you plug an oil well, I'm sure it's the same, is they'll run a string of tubing, small, you got a casing out there that's this big, and they'll take a rig out there and run a string of tubing to the bottom of the well, and then they'll circulate cement slurry. And typical oil well plug is they will require 100 foot above the highest producing sand that there's a plug, so no deeper than these wells are. I don't know whether they take a fair amount of cement. You got what are your casing sizes for your wells? The producing casing, what are they, 8-inch, 10-inch? Anyway, to save a little money, you probably wouldn't fill it completely full of cement, but that's generally a procedure they set out where the plug has to be above the highest producing sand, and I would assume that they would do the same thing and for you folks. And after that, there's no requirement to check on millions of wells, probably now been plugged in oil wells, oil and gas wells in the state of Texas that are 10 feet underground and nobody knows it. But anyway, that's the general procedure. He talks about, but I assume they do the same procedure, plugging water well, but they're only 6, 7, 800 feet deep, so it's pretty simple.
Anything else for Dan?
We appreciate any feedback you have, and like I said, they'll be in your mud packets too.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Miss Marcos, Diaz, is out here. Hi, Imelda. Good evening.
Glad you can make it.
Glad you could make it.
It's hard to run. I was just looking
Oh,
for.
my.
Anyway, so, yeah, I had a small accident, just twisted my foot. Anyways, thank you for having me here. I know it's been a little bit since I've been here. The last meeting, was actually in September, and the next meeting is tomorrow. So I'll be there. I guess the biggest update right now is that they have a draft technical memorandum that they posted on their website. It was posted November 6th, and it consisted of 83 municipalities, 11 counties, and 11 special districts. So it goes into some of the progress that the planning group has completed so far, talks about the modeling analysis for both the existing and the future flood conditions using TWDB approved methods. It defined the 10%, 1%, 0.2% annual flood events. So we can identify the highest areas of risk in the counties. The group has also reviewed and they have updated the minimum floodplain management standards that they're going to be requiring these communities to meet so they can be eligible for grant funding. Some of those include maintaining NFIP participation and improving their CRS scores, using Atlas 14 rainfall data, and then having some pre-board elevations for some of the critical infrastructure such as hospitals. And also requiring the best available H&H data for any other planning or regulatory decisions. The group also authorized the technical consultant team to move forward with the first 11 FMEs that were listed under their task 4. So these projects will focus on the flood-prone areas, and they're going to try to use these projects to fill in some of the data gaps that they're seeing right now in some of the models. Some of these projects include the Spring Creek and the Lake Creek FMEs. So those are going to address conveyance capacities and then some floodplain preservation, probably around Spring Creek. The West Fork San Jacinto studies is also listed on there, and that's going to explore green infrastructure and other flood mitigation opportunities. So approximately $810,000 of that original $942,000 has been allocated to start these studies. Additionally, we are working with HGAC and we're trying to obtain some of the 2024 preliminary LIDAR data so that can help us evaluate some of the information that we have a little bit better. And then finally, they are redefining rather the small or the rural sponsors. So that will help us guide to determine which of those will be eligible for some of the FMEs, because we know that some of the smaller communities don't have those resources to be able to hire engineers and be able to get the information that they need to get their projects on the plan. And then finally, in tomorrow's meeting, they're going to request approval to move forward and to submit the technical memorandum to TWDB, which is due on January 7th. So I know they're still asking for comments. I'm going to be frank, I have not looked at them yet, so I plan to look at it to there tomorrow and make any comments that I have. And of course, I'll be looking out for this area as well. Public engagement remains a key focus. There are some upcoming surveys that they're going to distribute to try to get more information on flooding concerns from the community and any priorities that y'all have in mind. So that's all I have.
I'm going to ask you a question, may not be in your purview, but we just passed a constitutional amendment to add another $1 billion to the water fund.
Mhm.
Can you explain how that money will be allocated out and how that process works? Is that?
I'm going to have to find out
Okay.
that for you. Oh, yeah. I can ask tomorrow and be able to.
David, I thought the Water Commission had approval rights, but it had to be a project that had been already gotten through the river authorities first.
But the river authorities were starting the project, all the 16 basins. And if they got it to kind of a capital funding level, then it would go into the TCQ. And they would then potentially fund the Water Development Board, sorry.
With fund.
Yeah,
authority.
yeah, I think that, I mean, that's what I read, but I don't know if that's right or not.
Not up to speed on
Yeah, I
that,
didn't
though.
get any explanation, but I Googled around, you know,
Yeah.
when I was voting for that item.
That's what I read
That
about.
was you read,
Yeah.
yeah. So everything's coming to the river authority.
I read that too, but I'm not sure how that's gonna apply.
It's not right.
Well, let's be clear, the River Authority, you're talking about the flood planning river groups, not the River Authority, right? Not our SJRA.
I meant the river authorities.
Well,
I'm not familiar with what he's talking about yet. I read a little bit about it too, but I'm not as up to speed on that. So I can ask the group if that's gonna impact our plan at all. So, I mean,
you're giving an update on Region 6, San Jacinto
Yes.
River Flood Planning Group,
yes, that's what I'm.
which is different than,
Oh, yeah. I wasn't
Our
saying
river
that was this. I was saying that.
well, when you use the term River Authority, it was,
He was,
are we talking Regional Flood Planning Group?
Yeah.
Are you talking?
he was asking if there's any kind of connection, right? It's like, yeah,
It's about, I thought your question was about the river authorities, yes?
No, I was just curious about how funding would be allocated and used. If she knew about that detail, I've looked.
Isn't that water and not what, stormwater?
exactly, it's water.
Yeah.
Not stormwater, but, you know, I've heard a lot of conversation about trying to tie them up a little bit, so I see where you're going with that.
I read the blurbs and what they call it. I knew the Texas Water Development Board was going to manage it,
Mhm.
but I don't know anything beyond that.
I'd be happy to ask tomorrow, see if anybody's heard anything, yeah. Any questions for me? I have
Thank
a
you,
question for
Melba.
y'all, it's like, who do I contact, as far as if anybody's interested in putting projects in the plan? New projects,
I would say anything from us would be Eric Peterson.
so there's any project that you may be looking into getting into plan?
Yeah, I believe we got, I was trying to remember, they're sitting here, we either got, I believe one of the Bear Panther projects we got,
Yes.
they said to the preliminary
Correct.
plan, this plan. And I don't believe Spring Creek is in it, but I may, so we have been working with SDRA. This was probably 3 or 4 months ago to try to get it into the plan before the deadline.
Okay, so.
No, but we can keep talking, we can.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important to try to identify other projects. Other people are reaching out to me, which is good, with their own ideas of some projects. So if there's anybody here that have a creative idea of something, just let me know. Happy to help.
Thank you,
Thank you
Melba.
so much.
Good
Thank you.
response. Thank you for your efforts in getting here.
Yes.
It was
Still traffic, but it's just,
nice to see you. Thank you again. Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 9, the attorney's report. Brian Yates, please.
Evening.
Good evening.
Well, speaking of elections, believe it or not, we're going to be getting into mud election season before long. We'll have the first item on the mud agendas next week to authorize publication of the notice of the candidate filing period. We pulled that forward. That's on a lot of agendas. That'll be on December, but since some of these districts may not be meeting in December, we pulled that forward to November to go ahead and get that approved by the districts. Candidate filing period will be from mid-January until mid-February. I think February 13th is the end date. As usual, Shelley will have packets for y'all at the January meetings to be able to fill out for those of you who are up for re-election. And we'll also at your January meetings, we'll be calling the elections for May. So that's kind of the next step for us. Election wise, happy to answer questions for y'all if you have them. All right. Thank you very
Yes, sir.
much.
Appreciate it. That brings us to agenda item number 10, General Manager's Report. General Manager Peterson, please.
All right, just a couple things to go over. Page 52. Point your attention to the Cherokee meeting update. I'll probably go into a little more detail next week in the meetings, but committee did approve the usage of the proposal to utilize the settlement funds for defeasance and refunding with a R&R transfer. So Basically, that would result in an additional 10-cent reduction in the GRP fee. And then $100,000 would go into the RA fund. But along with the defeasance, there was also a refunding component of that. For those of you that haven't gone through that in your MUDs, that's essentially a refinancing of existing bonds. And so when you do that, you would essentially get a better rate, and that knocks down your overall debt service over the life of the bonds. So that's part of the equation of the defeasance.
Eric, you'll bring more information next week to the MUDs on this? You said, is that what you said?
I'm just gonna go over what I just went over. What other information?
Could you provide me information? I mean, my original interpretation was they were going to use $18.8 million from Conroe to retire bonds. But listening to the discussion of the GRP, it sounds like they're actually going to issue new bonds.
No, refunding is basically a refinancing of old bonds to get better rates. And so they would utilize the funds to defease the old bonds, but also in order to create more towards that 10 cents, they also saw that that would be a good time to do refunding as well of some of those old bonds.
You have the data that shows what bonds are going to be retired and what new bonds are going to be issued?
I don't have that in my fingertips.
No, but can you get that?
Maybe not by next. Yes, I'll try.
Okay. I mean, it wasn't clear to me why we need to issue new bonds with the rates that we had on the old bonds were pretty competitive.
There'd be savings of quite a few $1 million worth of debt by refunding.
Yeah, and Bear Dog, you have to provide that. Whenever they present a refund, whether it's to a MUD or whatever font they have, they'll have a like slide deck or, handout that will show, this is what your current interest rate is. This is what the projected interest rate would be. This is what your net present value savings would be on a present value basis, to have that information in there. And they shouldn't be presenting it, and they wouldn't be if there weren't, sufficient net present value savings to be able to justify the transaction.
Usually there's like a rule of thumb trigger points where it's either a go or no go because the savings isn't enough. But obviously they went through that process and identified significant savings in the millions of reduced debt.
Yeah, she said
It's like a net 3% net PV savings, if it's that or greater. And that's from City of Houston. River Authority is not subject to that, but for a MUD they are. So that's usually the metric that's used on a present value basis.
Yeah, she reported a return of like 4%, 4.1%, but it wasn't clear how that was calculated and what the actual rates are on the bonds, the old bonds and the new bonds.
Yeah, well, they won't have the actual new bond rates yet.
They should have an estimate that generated the 4% return.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
So Eric, if we were I was at the GRP meeting, so that was a new topic. And if a couple of us were to go up and get a more detailed explanation of this at the River Authority, can we arrange just to sit down and go through these calculations? We're gonna be doing bonds. I was curious, it's all this data now is kind of live. Like, they don't have to calculate anything for us. We just go through in more detail than was presented at the GRP meeting. She alluded to that it's, they have a lot more detail. I'd like to sit down, for an hour and go through this between now and, before Christmas. I'm flexible. I don't know, Brad.
I can ask SGRA.
Yeah.
Arrange something.
Yeah, the GRP meeting was truncated in terms of the detail they gave. And I'd like to sit down and listen to it.
Eric, I think we just focus in on this 18.8 million, if that's the number we're talking about. 500,000 of that is going to the R&R fund. So the remainder is going to defeasance.
Correct.
So I guess if we could just see those in terms of, okay, we're defeasing whatever, and then identify what it is, and it totals 18.3 million. I think that's solving the.
Well, we're not extending, we're not extending the lives of any of these bonds, are we?
I think we are. What we financing at a greater date.
Well, that's what Baird's information should show. I mean, generally with mud bonds, there's not an extension. That's one of the
Yeah.
requirements for the city of Houston. You can't extend the term of the bond. So if they were going to expire in 2032, the refunded bonds have to expire in 2032. Now, the River Authority, again, isn't necessarily subject to that, but if they're extending, they would still have to show the net present value savings, which are going to be harder the further out you're pushing the debt.
My comment about, I'd like to go and sit down with them is just as a learning event for me personally. To listen to this discussion. Now listen to the GRP discussion. I'm going to be very attentive.
You know, I think the overall maturity on all the bonds when they're paid off is pulled forward 2 years, wasn't it, Eric?
It was a short duration.
Yeah.
She did report that. She also.
Yeah, she has.
Savings number. I just don't remember that. Yeah, both those were reported.
Yeah.
I heard a percentage, but I didn't hear a
She
dollar.
also, it was in the millions. I just don't remember the number. It's in my notes. I don't have that in my figure text, but I can get all that.
No slides are posted, but they didn't show the
I don't
bond.
That, yeah, but those numbers were not on the slide. I think she verbally said those numbers, as I recall. I'll go back through my notes and grab that detail. But I took that as a very good positive. I mean, if you recall the previous 18 or 19 million that was defeased earlier, that only accounted for 4 cents. So I don't know if that's directly proportional to this 18.8, it's different. I know it's different money, but that created 4 cents. This 18.3 with minus the 500,000, did that create 4 cents? And then the refunding created the additional 6. I think that's kind of what I'm hearing. You know, how did the numbers break out? So positive note is, you know, we were at 5 cents, 1 cent, then 4 cents, now another additional 10 cents. So we're up to I mean, we've had some pretty good drops in the GRP fee over the last 6 months. So not all that will go into effect January. It was discussed that probably go in early spring to go into effect for the customers. So because they still have some numbers to work through. All positive, I think.
If we could just, so as we're on the subject, the first 10 cents that we're referring to, that goes into effect January 1st, 26, right?
Yeah, first,
Yeah,
not this.
right, I understand. So the first 10 cents is the intention to just pass that through as a reduction to the
That's something
rate.
that's something we're going to talk about.
Initially, I thought it was January 1st. I know the River Authority folks have left, but then my recollection was at the last round of meetings, they talked about pushing that to February 1st to allow for working out some of these other numbers. So I don't know if anything has changed from then, but I'm not certain that the January 1st number is still sticking and it's not February 1st. So we'll need to confirm that. And in terms of how the funds are going to be handled, we talked about it in some of the MUD meetings, but not all, about, you know, is there an opportunity maybe to move some of the pennies from the GRP that are being saved over to the retail rates to be able to help pay for the debt that will be issued by the River Authority and paid for through wholesale rates for the water line replacement. So there may be an opportunity, because what you don't want to do, and we talked about this at least at some of the MUD meetings, you don't want to go down with your rates because your customers just care what their final bill is. And so if the bill goes down and then it goes back up, that's not good. If you can keep it pretty steady, that would be.
In my view, we need to be well aware of the statement that we've made ever since we've had the GRP, that it's a pass through. And we know that the city of Conroe does not pass it through. They jack it up. So the question I'm raising is, do we need to say that we're going to put an administrative fee of 2%, 3%, whatever it is, to get it to a number that's compatible?
Once we get to that point, we'll know what we're going to say.
Well, we need to think about it carefully, because I'm not sure that we don't want to keep it the same, but we can talk about it later.
That's a MUD discussion. Trustee discussion.
Yes, it'll be a MUD discussion, but it would be a recommendation that I would make to the MUDs. And I would expect uniformity in that.
Across the MUDs.
All the rates go all over.
Anything else?
Yeah, I don't know where I would direct this question, but I saw that Mid-South as a GRP participant, they were, then they tried to get out of it, and they're back into it. But I saw in the paper that Conroe and Mid-South is negotiating a purchase of Mid-South by the city of Conroe,
The water assets.
water assets, right?
I don't have any.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the newspaper article that you did, and I've talked to a few folks, and it's not entirely clear what the discussions are about, because Mid-South, expands over a larger area, but they go up past Montgomery and have projects out that way. So what I'd heard is it may just be for a portion of Mid-South's assets, but again, I haven't seen any terms, and I don't know that they've come to terms. So I saw the article you did, but that's as much as I know.
Is Wood Forest in the city of Conroe?
No, they're ETJ, but they are subject to annexation.
I think that's why.
Yeah, there's certain.
That's why they were trying to buy it, because they think they're going to eventually annex Wood
Annex it.
Forest.
Yeah, they're muds that overlap, but they're served by Mid-South. And just two other quick things. I just wanted to remind everybody or let everybody know that we did have a tour of the dam a few weeks ago. Had good attendance there. And then wanted to report officially that we had all 10 muds participate in the dam engineering program that we had talked about over the last few months. So full participation.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good job. At what level?
The level they could.
Various.
Yeah.
Good or wood? Okay, got it.
Good report, sir.
That's it. We can talk about December meeting. I was gonna just bring it up in this part is that I'm really thinking that we'll likely not have December meetings. You can see the level of agenda items on this agenda, and I don't see anything major pressing that we need to cover in December unless a particular bud wants to bring something up. So that's the direction we go.
And the same true for the board of trustees
Correct.
meeting. Anybody feel a particular need to meet in December? The shaking of the heads this way, it appears to be consensus.
I will say I'll leave it that if something does come up and we do, then I will express that to y'all and we'll go ahead and go
Good.
forward. But at this point, I'm seeing.
Yeah. Thank you. Very good. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 11, the staff or ad hoc committee reports. The Personnel Committee did meet on November 11th, and that will be discussed in our closed session here in the next agenda item. Audit and Finance Committee, Ron?
We have not met. The audit commenced this week. So we'll be meeting with the auditors the week before the January meeting to go over the audit and the reports and all. And y'all will be receiving, I guess everybody has done it before, a letter from the auditors, about your certain disclosures or transactions you may or may not have had with the various months.
Thank you, sir. Public Education Committee, Neil?
Yes, the Public Education Committee met today. We reviewed minor updates to the strategic communications plan. The approved red line version of the plan will be finalized and provided to the trustees prior to the January meeting. Now, as you're all aware, I hope that there is a new interactive map about the infrastructure projects available on the UO website. There's a lot of information in there. There's going to be more added, and those additions are under consideration. We're also looking at updates to the content of project cut sheets with the intent of simplifying updates and ensuring consistency across the various organizations like SGRA and WWA, so that we are providing consistent information to the public. And that's it.
Very good, sir. Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 12, when we will be recessing for closed session. And tell you what, we'll If anybody needs to, we can take a short break or we can just plow right ahead. Anybody need to move on? Thank you, Brian.
We did it on TV. Yeah.